living entities and the Supreme, he taught again and again and again and again Panchabheda, 5 distinctions. Panchabheda, it's like a theme of Madhva's teachings. So those 5, living entity and the Supreme. Differences between one living entity and another living entity. Differences between living entity and Prakriti. Differences between the living entity, the Supreme and Prakriti. And differences between Prakriti and Prakriti. Divisions of Prakriti. Panchabheda. And many of the things that we're going to hear, they may very well remind you of hearing about Lord Chaitanya's childhood pastimes. That is, something kind of mysterious, something kind of supernatural, something mystical, essentially indicating he's not ordinary. And he's not ordinary. We heard he, Madhvacarya, is an incarnation or a partial expansion, at least, of Vayu. Vayu was requested by Lord Vishnu, please appear on earth and correct the problem down there. The problem down there was deliberate, at least according to the biographers of Madhva, there was a deliberate purpose to get back at Krishna for defeating everybody in the Kurukshetra battle, although he didn't fight, but they held him responsible for the defeat of the Kauravas. So to get back at him and get back at Bhima, there was a plan, a conspiracy, a plot to discredit the Vedas. And the strategy was that an incarnation of Lord Shiva would be encouraged to come, and there's details and details, but to twist the meaning of the Vedas. There's more details. So that was yesterday. So he, Madhvacarya, given by the name Vasudeva, so when you hear Vasudeva in this, that's Madhvacarya, from the birth name given by his father. He's displaying characteristics that are extraordinary because he's extraordinary. He's showing his learning, he's showing his strength, he's showing his power of digestion, and many other things that are like Bhima. You boys over there, you know who is Bhima, right? Yes. Do you know one of the other names of Bhima starts with a V? Vrikodar. You heard that name before? You're not even saying yes or no. And not just him, any one of you. You've heard the name Vrikodar? Yes, you've heard. Vrikodar. No, you haven't. Okay, thank you for acknowledging. Vrikodar means he had voracious appetite. Bhima was known to have a voracious appetite. Voracious means like insatiable. He could eat and eat and eat, no problem. And eat some more and eat some more, no problem. So we heard some about that yesterday. And Vasudeva, the little boy, even from when he was just a little baby, an infant, he had an insatiable appetite. We heard some pastimes. So he had characteristics that are quite extraordinary. Like Bhima had, or like Hanuman had, we're going to hear, Hanuman had the ability to, like Vayu, like the wind god, to jump big distance, right? Hanuman jumped all the way to Lanka, which is a big jump. It's 800 miles. Who can jump 800 miles? No Olympic jumper can jump 800 miles. No way. But Hanuman could. And Vasudeva demonstrated the same ability. We'll hear shortly. All of this is warming you up for the fact that he, Madhvacarya, in his childhood even, was showing capacity that was superhuman. So what to speak of when he gets to this stage where he's teaching Panchabheda? What he did, his main mission on behalf of Vishnu was to restore two things: restore credibility in the Vedas, because Shankaracharya had before him, Lord Buddha, and then Shankaracharya had twisted meanings from the Vedas that were so unrecognizable that people started believing in unrecognizable truths that weren't true. Very bewildering. And Shankaracharya was very powerful. He had because he was very powerful, he had followers. And he reformed, in a bad way, vast parts of India. The good part was he restored faith in the Vedas, but the bad part was he distorted the Vedas beyond recognition. And people believed it because it was Kali Yuga. And they, gullible, not rooted in Vedic wisdom, they accepted. So Madhvacharya corrected that. Taking the strength of faith in the Vedas, he gave the correct and proper understanding, primarily, most essentially, faith in there's one source of everything, and that one source of everything, this is the Supreme Person, not the undifferentiated Nirguna Brahman. Sa Guna Brahman, meaning the Supreme Lord with qualities and characteristics. And then everything comes from him. So he restored that. And second, we heard abundantly yesterday, specifically within the Vedic tradition, he restored the respect, the equal respect that's to be given to Mahabharata and Srimad Bhagavatam, along with the Shrutis and Vedanta Sutra. Because prior to him, the Shrutis, that means the Upanishads, and the four Vedas are Shrutis. Upanishads? Yes, no, maybe. Can you give some indication, like this? Am I talking to the wall or to a person? Don't just look at him. You can respond too. You've heard of the Upanishads? Yes or no? No. Okay. No wonder it's difficult to listen to this. The Upanishads are the philosophical portion of the Vedas. Upanishads. For example, Prabhupada gave us Sri Ishopanishad. Sri Ishopanishad is one of the 108 principal Upanishads. So that's the philosophical portion. So when writing their commentaries, the previous Ramanujacharya, Shankaracharya, etc., they relied very heavily on the Shrutis, the Upanishads and Vedanta Sutra, to establish their doctrine or their commentaries on Vedanta Sutra. But they didn't so much they did not give the same emphasis to Srimad Bhagavatam and Mahabharata. So this is a big contribution. Madhva did that. He gave equal footing, and with scriptural references why and he was doing that, to establish his teachings. And another is that he gave strong emphasis on deity worship. And we'll see that in this presentation just now. So there's some pastimes connected with Madhva when he was a small boy. So we're going back to when Madhva wasn't known as Madhva yet. He was known as Vasudeva. So when he was around 3 years old, Vasudeva went with both his mother and father to family function, some distance away. There we see them riding in a bullock cart and they're having a nice time. going to a family function. And the place was where his mother's family lived. So, you know, one of those family functions when you're a kid, you're a 3-year-old kid, not too attractive. So they were doing the adult thing, meeting, greeting, playing, talking, thising and thating, partying, village talk. And little 3-year-old Vasudev, he wasn't interested at all. So what did he do? While everyone was doing the adult thing, he went for a little walk. And it ended up being a big walk. He went to a nearby temple. And when in the nearby temple, there's a form of Lord Narayana. So a form of Lord Narayana encouraged him. We're going to hear later where the little boy, Vasudev, 3-year-old boy, his father finally found him like 6 miles away. 3-year-old boy. Think of somebody you know that's 3 years old. Anybody here 3 years old? Huh? Okay. So that's pretty small. But he's Vayu, so little walk isn't going to be a difficulty for him. Later, so he testified to his father that the Supreme Lord took me. So he's walking, we'll see a map shortly, from the place where his mother's family lived, which was some distance, a bullock cart ride away from their home, and he started heading in a southerly direction. And when people saw this little 3-year-old boy walking alone on the 3-year-old, on this path, they asked him, "Where do you want to go?" He didn't answer, because he was just following Lord Narayan, whatever he wanted to take him. He walked, first of all, 1.6 kilometers. How many miles is that? Around 2 miles. How many? 1 mile. Okay. Not bad, 1 mile. Not bad. And the temple he went to was a Shankara Narayana temple. And here's a photograph of that Shankara Narayana temple. And then he went directly into the inner sanctum. And he offered his obeisances and prayers. And from there, he went another distance to a temple called Nadi Kela, and then another form of the Lord. This is an important detail. It's a deity of Lord Shiva, and he, Vasudev, was offering his respects to the form of Hari, who is within the deity of Lord Shiva. Some of you have been to Jagannath Puri. How many here have been to Jagannath Puri? Okay. And when you went to you went. This little boy. How old were you when you went? How many years old? 6 years old. Okay. Okay, very good. When you went to Jagannath Puri, did you first go to Bhubaneswar? You're not sure. Ask your mom. Did you first go to Bhubaneswar? Yes, no. Yes. Yes. So Lord Chaitanya, you know who is Lord Chaitanya, right? Lord Chaitanya was requested by his mother, Sachi, to not go to Vrindavan, which in relation to Mayapur would be west, kind of northwest, but west. Go south. Due south is Jagannath Puri, she said, because Krishna is there in Puri as Lord Jagannath. And if you go there, you'll be with Krishna, and I'll get to get word of you, because our devotees go from Mayapur to Jagannath Puri for Rath Yatra every year. So on the way to Puri, he passed through Bhubaneswar. And Bhubaneswar has many, many, many Lord Shiva temples. Some of you know. Many, many, many Lord Shiva temples. And it's understood that the Shiva deity, the Shiva lingas that are there, have a Shila of Lord Vishnu, a Shalagram Shila inside. Did you know that? Shalagram Shila, the celebrated, I forget the name of the celebrated Lord Shiva that many people go and recognize as the principal deity of Lord Shiva in Bhubaneswar. Huh? I can't remember. I heard this from Madhvananda. Madhvananda was with us in our visit to Puri, and he was taking us all through Bhubaneswar, because at that time he was residing in Bhubaneswar. Now he lives in Puri. But the history is, there's a Shalagram Shila inside the main Lord Shiva Murti. So people that go to offer their respects, they may be offering their respects to Lord Shiva, but it's actually offering respects to Shiva, who is a servant of Lord Narayan, who is within the deity as the Shalagram Shila. In any case, that was the consciousness. There's a whole topic of Vaishnavas may, in some cases do, offer their respects to all Shiva's deities with the understanding that he is a personality who is representing Lord Vishnu. That is to say, minimally, he's the Vaishnavanam Yatar Shambhu, meaning he's the best of all Vaishnavas. And in his position, Lord Shiva is in charge of one of the modes of nature. When the creation is made by the personality of Godhead through his agency of Lord Brahma, there's modes of nature. One of those modes is Tamagun, and Lord Shiva is in charge of that mode of nature. He's a guna avatar. He's an avatar of Vishnu. So some Vaishnavas, a number of Vaishnavas, worship Lord Shiva with that understanding. There's more to be said. That's a whole other discussion. So he, little boy, 3 years old, went to this temple of Lord Shiva, the Mahalinge Swara deity, respecting Lord Hari within that deity. And after taking darshan of these two places, he then went to a third place, all the way to Udupi. Now here's some teachings that are from Srimad Bhagavatam on how it is that some Vaishnavas may worship Lord Shiva, respecting that within Lord Shiva deity, there's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Here's one verse from the 3rd canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. And you may recognize 3rd canto, chapter 29. This is part of Kapila Dev's teachings. 3rd canto, chapter 29. The whole chapter is about devotional service, by the way. He, this is the devotee of the Lord, should offer great respects within the mind to all living entities, thinking that the Supreme Lord has entered that entity as Antaryami. Antaryami means supersoul. Antar, within. Antaryami, the Lord within, or supersoul. So Krishna is within everyone, every living entity. What to speak of the Devas? Here's a reference from Gautamiya Tantra that is a part of the commentary on this section of the Bhagavatam. If a person who worships Krishna criticizes the Devatas, whatever dharma he has accomplished is destroyed, what to speak of attaining Dharma in the future. So don't make that mistake. We don't criticize devatas. We don't hold them to be equal to or independent of Vishnu, but one may offer respect, recognizing within every living entity is the personality of Godhead, and therefore they are to be respected. So that's what he did. Seeing such a small boy of 3 years spontaneously offering respects and prayers like this. Now the Brahmins saw this little boy going here and there and offering prayers and so forth. They were puzzled. 3-year-old boy. But, like he's not just 3 years old. He was precocious. He grew up real fast. This small boy of exemplary behavior, this text is more or less a cut and paste drawn directly from the biography about Madhva. We heard earlier, just for those of you that weren't with us, the biographers are super scholars who were in direct association with Madhvacarya. Trivikram, Panditacharya, and his disciple, Narayana Panditacharya, were co-authors of this text. So in other words, it's authorized, it's authentic. This is just cut and paste from their writing. In short, he was making a demonstration. Although he's a 3-year-old, he's an acharya. He's teaching by example how to act. 2 things, remembering Narayan and offering obeisances to the deity form of the Lord, and going to the temples to see the deity form of the Lord and offering respect. And that this behavior was acharya-like from the get-go in his young 3-year-old little form. Here's something that Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes in one of his books, one of his 100 books, called Amnaya Sutra. For those who are prosperous householders, the path of the deity, the path of worship of the deity of the Lord is most important. If they ignore this duty and act as if they had no money, were poverty-stricken, merely engaged in meditating on the Lord and serving Him in ways that do not involve the expenditure of money, these cheating activities will not help them. Therefore, householders have a solemn duty to worship the deity. If somehow they are not able to worship the deity directly, then they should worship the deity in meditation. How are we doing over there? Don't look over your shoulder. Any one of you, don't look over your shoulder. How are you doing? You good? Do you know the story of the Brahmin that heard in a Bhagavatam class about worshiping the deity in the mind? You know that story? It's a nice story. It's related to this. Now, he had a deity. But as he got older and older and older, it was hard for him to get around and gather all the ingredients for the worship of his deity. And he was poor. He was a poor Brahmin. While sitting in a Srimad Bhagavatam class one day, he heard that one can also worship the deity within one's mind. He thought, well, fantastic. So he started the practice every day, early in the morning, in meditation, worshiping his deity in his mind. And all the details of gathering waters from the sacred places within his mind to bathe his deity, and gathering flowers from the best places here and there, abhishek of his deity, and so forth and so on. Ornaments for his deity, fabulous ornaments, nice crowns, jewelry, everything is all in his mind. And after the bathing, and then the dressing, and the ornamenting, and the garlanding, he'd then make an offering. So in his mind, he would cook how do you cook in your mind? But he knew how to do it because he knew how to cook, and he just did it in his mind. And every day, he made this really fantastic offering in his mind to his deity in his mind after dressing and everything, worshiping his deity. And that was his daily puja. He liked it. He was very satisfied. However, something happened. It wasn't a problem, it was very nice. One day, because he was making sweet rice, he didn't have a refrigerator because he's just a poor Brahmin. He didn't put the sweet rice in the refrigerator. He wanted to see if the sweet rice had become cool enough. So in his meditation, he put his finger in the sweet rice to see if it was cool enough, and it wasn't cool enough yet. His finger burned. And so his meditation broke when his finger burned. He looked at his finger, and his finger was burned. And then he looked up in the sky, and a Vaikuntha airplane descended to take him to the spiritual world because it's time for him to depart the world. He achieved spiritual perfection by worshiping his deity in his mind. But what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying is, one has the means, don't be a miser, and just worship in your mind. If you're a poor Brahmin, you live in the middle of nowhere, you can do that. If you're very qualified, and you literally don't have the financial capacity. But if there's financial capacity, it's mandatory. So that's Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and he was a householder himself. Madhvacarya, as a little boy, was teaching the same by his behavior as a 3-year-old. So these 3 things. His mind was always on Narayana. He was eager to see the deity form of the Lord and ready to offer some prayers and worship of some kind. So here's a map showing how a 3-year-old traveled. Here's where, on the upper left is the ancestral home of his mother. Let's see if we can do this. Yes, up here is where his journey started, and he headed south. And he went to this temple, and after visiting that temple, he went over this way to the next temple, 3 kilometers, and then from there to Udupi, another 2 kilometers. So as you see at the bottom, there's the names of the deities. This Shankar Narayana temple, that's the first one he went to over here. This is a little boy, 3 years old, 1.6 kilometers, or 1 mile, toddling 3-year-old. And offering prayers and obeisances, etc., etc., etc. And then he ended up finally in Udupi. There's an Udupi Krishna temple today in Udupi. At that time, there wasn't an Udupi Krishna deity. There was this deity, a deity of Chandra, Muleshwara deity. There's the temple, there's the deity, and then again in Udupi he went to this temple where it's the Ananteshwara deity. We heard the first day about the Ananteshwara deity. It's a special deity of a combination of Lord Parshuram and Lord Shiva. So he went there and he was offering prayers, and meanwhile, back where his mother and father were, they looked around, they didn't see their son anywhere. So, they were busy with having their nice festivities. So he asked his wife, have you seen our son? She hadn't seen him either. She was also absorbed in all of the activities. And evening had come, and the word spread amongst all the family members and relatives and so forth. This little boy, 3-year-old boy, is missing. So what's that going to do to some adults? They're going to be in anxiety and blaming themselves that they were negligent and so forth and so on. And so he inquired, the father, Madhvacarya, inquired, and some people saw him heading south. So he started heading south. He went to the first temple, and he went to the next temple, in the next temple, and found out 6 kilometers later, there was his son before the Ananteshwara deity offering prayers. In the biography, I mentioned already, the chief biographers were Narayana Pandita Acharya. That's the name of this book, Madhvacarya. It describes that his father came to the little boy like a bumblebee comes to a flower. By catching the scent of the flower, the bumblebee can follow where the flower is. And by Madhvacarya being divinely inspired by super soul within, he was able to find his son. I mean, how are you going to find your son 6 kilometers away? Don't try it. And the father was very surprised. The son wasn't in any anxiety. The son was very happy. The son wasn't indicating that he had put anybody in trouble or any anxiety. And the father asked him, how'd you get here? So far away, through all these forest paths and everything. How'd you get here? And the little boy said, Lord Narayan brought me here. First, there was the Lord Narayan deity, the Shankar Narayana deity. He escorted me to his temple. And then he took me to the next place. And then in the next place, Lord Hari, in the Mahalingeshwara temple, he brought me here to Udupi. And the Lord Chandra Muleshwara took me to his temple and then brought me to Ananteshwara temple. The question was, how'd you get here? And the answer was, the Lord took me here. He wasn't in any anxiety. He was very happy. He was exhibiting behaviors of a great acharya, an extraordinary personality. His father then prayed to the deity, because his father had prayed to the deity to have Vasudeva as his son. So now he's praying to the deity, please protect him. Because who knows, in the forest, there's wild animals, and in the trails, there are bandits. So he then went back to the place where his wife's relatives resided, and then from there, they returned to their actual home. This Pajaka Kshetra is their name of their home area. Okay, that's the first of 5. We started with 8, number 8, which comes after 7. And now we're ready for number 9, which comes after 8. Pardon me for all this, but I'm trying to keep track of so much new information. It's like I have to be a little focused. So there's a procedure for young boys, particularly for Brahmin boys, but other boys, where there's a little ceremony when the boy learns to write. No, girls can learn to write too, but there's a certain ceremony. Akshara Bhashya. So Brahmanas engage their children in this way. Now his father, Madhvacarya, that's his name, he saw that his son, because the father was teaching the son, the father's a Brahmana, and little boy is his Brahmana's son, and he's teaching him. And he saw that anything, as soon as he presented it, he understood it. And then he could repeat it, and he was ready for the next thing, almost immediately. So he decided that he was going to engage him in his education procedure earlier, his primary education. There's the name of the Vidya Rambha Sanskar. So the procedure was some writing on a tablet. Now they didn't have pads of paper like we have today. So it's just a stone slab. And who knows what was along with the stone slab, some chalk of some kind. And there it is. There's a photograph of the stone slab where the little boy was engaged in the ritual of learning to write. And he right away learned the alphabet and formed letters and made the sounds because there's rules connected with Sanskrit. And he learned it all so quickly. And he was pretty amazed. It was as if, the biography says, that he already knew it. And he was just keeping it a secret, so when his father pressed the button, it came out, because it was already there. There's a painting or an illustration, the goddess Saraswati, the goddess of learning. And there are people that observe this little boy is gifted. When everyone saw the way that Vasudeva mastered the subject being taught in a few minutes, they were astonished. As soon as his father showed him something, that was all that was required. With no effort, one can easily see the goddess of learning, Saraswati, was in her natural position, standing with folded hands, offering respects to this great devotee of Lord Narayan, who is Vayu, but known by the birth name of Vasudeva. You know who is Vayu? No. You're nodding yes. Tell me who is Vayu. Wind god, right? There's 33 million controllers of different things in the universe, different affairs. Sun god, what's his name? Surya. Wind god, Vayu. So the controllers of different features of material creation. Vayu is a very powerful one. Wind is very powerful, and he's the controller of the wind. So this Madhvacarya, or when he was a little boy, Vasudeva, he had capacity like Vayu. Innate, because he's an incarnation. And so the statement in this biography is as if the goddess of learning, Saraswati, was with folded hands standing before this great devotee, Vayu, as if he's a little boy. And his plenary portion, known as Vasudeva or Mukhya Pran. Mukhya Pran. Mukhya Pran is another name of Vayu in this realm. And then his father started to get a little worried. You know, parents, they get worried. Give them something to get worried about. They don't give them anything, they'll find something and get worried about it. So the father was thinking, this boy is so smart, people are going to be envious. And they'll be disturbed, like what's going on. And it may result in someone trying to mess him up, doing some tantric magic or putting an evil eye on him or casting some spell or some kind of, somehow being envious. This kid's too smart, let's mess him up. He was concerned like that. And though exactly how this goes on today is different than how it went on during that time. But during that time, there are people that have these powers or capacities. So he was concerned about envy. So the person who helped, one of the persons who created all of this text is probably listening right now. He's in India, so maybe he isn't listening right now because this is midday and it's pretty late in India right now. Shamakun put a little section on enviousness. And it's something that he feels strongly, so I'll just support what he feels strongly about. That enviousness, like pride, it's insidious. Pride is where you have something and you feel good about yourself because you have that something. When that something that you have came from somewhere. Supposing you're good at school, supposing you're good at music, supposing you're good at anything. Where'd that ability come from? So credit goes to the place where that ability came from. It doesn't go to you. But pride is you don't recognize you received something from some higher source. You just have pride that you have this thing. Somebody has money, somebody has position, somebody has title, something. Pride is insidious. Pride destroys everything good, and envy destroys everything good. Envy is where somebody has something and you want that something. So you have some ill regard for that somebody that has something. So his father, Madhvacarya, was concerned that people may be envious of this little boy and bring some harm to bring him down because he shouldn't be up, he should be like me. People are like that. So the practical application is two things. Beware of pride and beware of envy. So in our organization, an adult to an adult, or the adults to your children, because some of you have children, it's important to help yourself and help your children understand material competition is unwholesome. Transcendental competition means Krishna should be pleased. Material competition arises from envy and pride, and it's insidious. Anything good can easily be destroyed by those two. That's the little sound bite from Shamakund for an ISKCON audience. I plan to speak this when we get to Udupi finally. So that was number 10. It's number 9. So we covered 8 and 9, and there's 3 more, 10, 11, and 12. Exhibiting knowledge of the Puranas. It's as if he already knew before he heard. And he did already know before he heard. And he exhibited it twice, at least in his biography. Once he went with his mother to a village where they were invited to attend a marriage festival. Now, a little boy in a marriage festival, it's not fun. So what happened, instead of hanging out at the wedding, he went to a place where there was a Brahmana named Shiva Bhatta who was reciting from the Puranas. He had a big audience, a big lecture hall with lots and lots of people. And his mother's over there attending the wedding, and he's over there hearing the Puranic story. Little boy. He's older than 3 years, but, he's still a little boy. And he's been hearing from his father, but, he hasn't learned everything yet. And as the speaker was speaking, he made a mistake in his speaking the Puranic story. And so the little boy in this assembly raised his hand politely and said, "The story that you're telling does not conform with the purports of the great saintly rishis and munis, like Vyasadeva and Shukadev." So this little boy, no, at the conclusion, I'll say it again at the end, but he spoke in such a gentle and non-challenging manner. It wasn't meant to embarrass the person or show off or something. He just was fastidious about speaking correctly. And he did it in such a manner and mood that it was not taken, it wasn't meant, and it wasn't taken as being disrespectful. But he said, therefore, what you are saying is highly speculative and cannot be taken as authoritative. And then, because the audience wanted to hear from him, if that wasn't right, what's right, was the correct understanding, as you see in the painting, you stood up and explained everything so clearly with the correct meaning behind the story that it was very clear this little boy knows his stuff. And then later, just to check, he went back and asked his father, "Did I speak correctly?" But when he spoke in this large assembly where his mother is still off at the wedding, the demigods poured flowers because they knew that he was sent from the heavenly region by Lord Vishnu to correct the problem of people misguiding the public and misinterpretations of the Vedas. So the narrator is sitting there alone, and everybody left. And when he went back to their home in Pajaka Kshetra, that's again the name of the place where the family lived, he asked his father, was I correct or was Shivabhata correct? And his father asked him what was the detail, and his father, being very learned also, said what you said was correct. And when he said it was said in such a way that it wasn't disrespectful, and it wasn't taken as disrespectful by the audience or by the speaker. That's a challenge in itself, to speak something in a public forum to a speaker and make a correction, an editing correction right in the midst of the public speech, and have the person not disturbed. This biography of his life said something similar happened with his father. His father was explaining a Puranic section, and his son was listening. And as his son heard what his father said, there was a particularly important word. I don't know the detail. This is what's in the biography. Nikichu. Nikucha was an important word in that section that he was covering, and he didn't use the word, didn't explain it. The acharyas and commentators did, and so his son asked his father, can I explain this? Very respectfully. You omitted describing this word, nikucha. And his father was very pleased with him. And this is the part, again, saying, it did in such a way, it wasn't disrespectful, and it wasn't even perceived as being disrespectful. Now, he looked up to his father like anything, and his father is highly qualified. We heard his father, it's said that his father was so expert in reciting that the demigods would come hover in the sky and listen to his father speaking. But this is Vasudev. So that's pastime number 3 for today, or number 10. Then there's 2 more remaining. So that in a child's upbringing, in a Brahmana child's upbringing, traditionally, a Brahmana's son will receive Upanayana at the age of 8, a Kshatriya at the age of 11. So little boys, Upanayana, it means it's a formal ceremony where sacred thread is given, certain mantras are given, that then entitle that child to begin formal study. Just like after Krishna received his Upanayana, that's when he went to school at Sandipani Muni school. Up until this time, this little young boy, Vasudev, is being trained by his father and learning all these things, but he hasn't received Upanayana, formal initiation yet. So it happened when he was much younger than the normal age. His father considered this boy learned so quickly, I should give his Upanayana before he's 8 years old. So he was just 5 years old. Unusual. It's breaking tradition, but he had the qualification, and so his father gave him the Upanayana ceremony, performed the Upanayana ceremony and then following that, his son chanted Gayatri mantra every day, and the morning prayers during different times of the day, different Sundays, certain prayers are to be recited. He learned it and fastidiously carried it out at the age of 5. Most boys are at the age of 5. They like something else besides Gayatri chanting. Modern kids, it's those little games they play with their... Of course, you guys don't do that, right? So then comes another pastime. There's going back a little bit. During the Mahabharata war, there was Maniman, a demon that was killed by Bhima. It's mentioned many places in the life of Madhvacarya, because Madhvacarya is yet another iteration of both Hanuman and Bhima. So there's a connection between Madhvacarya, Hanuman, and Bhima. So Bhima killed this demon during Mahabharata war, Maniman. And although he was killed, in his next life he became a massive serpent. Envious, became a serpent. And he, the serpent Maniman, was lurking, waiting to attack Vasudeva. So this temple is a place where, well, I have to use my laser pointer, where Madhvacarya, as a little boy, is placing his foot on the serpent. There's the serpent, you see? And the serpent then transformed his body into that of a demon. And then up here is Bhima, and up here is Hanuman. So Hanuman, Bhima, and Madhvacarya. And there's the serpent demon, Maniman, and the same Maniman that was killed by Bhima. There you see Bhima with his foot on Maniman. We don't know who Maniman was during the pastimes of Ramachandra and Hanuman. So back at home, Panchakshetra, he, the son, the boy, Vasudeva, was walking towards his father's home nearby the Durga temple. And those of you that were with us earlier, there's a Durga temple that was established by Parshuram to protect the whole area. And as he was passing by or going towards the Durga temple, there was a gigantic serpent. We're going to see some images of that gigantic serpent. And that gigantic serpent was a next life incarnation of Maniman, who was killed by Bhima during the Kurukshetra war. There's a serpent image. Soon after his Upanayana, so when was his Upanayana? He's just 5 years old, a little older than 5 years old. As he was walking towards this Durga temple, this giant serpent attacked him and pounced upon him and used his poisonous fangs. However, powerful Vasudeva, 5-year-old, didn't flinch. He just put his foot on the hoods of the serpent and crushed him. Here's a more modern painting of the same. Look at that serpent. So that's a celebrated pastime. Maybe some of you heard about that pastime because it's very well known. But he killed this demon when he was just 5 years old. And he was delayed by killing the serpent, so his mother started getting anxious. You know how mothers are. And she then called his name. When she called his name, instantly, he just bounded in one leap from where he was on top of this hill. There's the hill where the Durga deity is, and boom, he landed up at the doorstep of his mother's house. Just like Hanuman. So there's this one day's activity. He began the day's proceedings by performing a feat of Bhima, that's crushing this Rakshasa, and then jumping like Hanuman. So it's throughout this biography, making this connection again and again and again and again to the point where he heard so many times, okay, I got it. That is, Madhvacarya is the third iteration of the appearance of Vayu, just as Hanuman was the son of Vayu, Bhima was the son of Vayu, and Madhvacarya was a manifestation of Vayu. Not that Vayu was his father, but he was Vayu, or a plenary portion of Vayu. And there's a place you see in the English word here, Pajaka Kshetra. That's the place they have a mark where he began his jump after killing the demon to go to answer the call of his mother. And last but not least, we have just 10 slides remaining and then we're done. Vasudeva covers the milk and curd vessel. So his mother one day asked her son, there's some milk and curd, I can't find any lid. Can you cover the milk and the curd? Sure. So he picked up this stone slab and placed it on the cup as the cover. It looks pretty heavy, right? No problem for Vasudeva. The 3-year-old Madhva lifted stone slabs and put them on the vessels, ran away to play. Now, this is chronologically, he's 3 years old, which is coming after he was 5 years old, so it's out of order. We'll probably have to fix the order. And this is the last slide. We're done. This is the place where these 2 stone slabs, doesn't show where the vessels are. Pretty heavy cover for a vessel. But anyway, it's the place commemorating the pastime, where a 3-year-old boy picked up these 2 stones and placed them as his mother asked him and ran off to play. So circling back again, we are accustomed, many of us are accustomed to hearing Krishna's childhood pastimes. Many of us are also accustomed to hearing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's childhood pastimes, and we're not accustomed to hearing Madhvacarya's childhood pastimes. But to me, they're very similar, particularly similar to Lord Chaitanya's childhood pastimes, including this whole thing with the serpent. There's a childhood pastime with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and a serpent. You know, serpents are dangerous. You live in a village, you don't have serpents here in suburbia, but there's serpents in villages in India, and they're very dangerous. What to speak of one that's this gigantic thing. He's a 5-year-old boy, and he just crushes the thing with his toe. So it's miraculous. And then after that, he jumps to where his mother is. And the place where his mother is not around the corner. It's but he has that power. So it's displaying these pastimes he's acting as if one of us, but he's not. That's the essential message. Aside from the details, he's exhibiting some divine features, which leads into further appreciation of when he begins his adult activities, or young adult and adult activities, of bringing teachings to the world that were confronting Shankaracharya's teachings And that was a big deal. It's called risk your life. And in those days, honor and prestige was a big deal. You're risking your life. These days one may also, but those days even more so. Kind of unruly. But he did, under the order of Lord Vishnu, to do so. So we're all of this, for those of you that don't know the background, that even the morning of Radhastami and the day after Radhastami, we're talking about Madhvacarya. This is a warm-up for me to get ready for going to Udupi and speaking about and remembering the glories and teachings, etc., of Madhvacarya. And a lot of it's new. So pray for me. Because it's not going to be easy to be able to express and explain what to speak of people that are going to ask questions, and I don't have all the answers. So let's see if there's some discussion or comments. Yes.
Appreciating hearing about Madhvacarya. Like we see the references when we are reading. Madhvacarya says like this, lesson, like that. Thank you so much. Now we can feel, not just reading what he said, but getting the appreciation of his personality. And I also want to thank you for, bringing this material like it was very wonderful. You're fortunate to hear from
I'm
me.
just a speaker. Someone else put it all together. Someone else illustrated it. She's sitting over there, your good wife. And the speaker, the person that compiled it, he edited it a little bit and polished it a little bit. You probably noticed the places. I'm just opening my mouth. But so thank you for the appreciation. But credit goes to the people that actually did the work. Huh? Yatra has coming to you. And we're not done yet. There's one more night. One more night. The material so far, this is the fourth of 4 classes. Just so that you get it, you get some appreciation and like I can feel. There's 96 pages that have been covered in 2 classes, the 4 classes. And there's 550 pages total. So this is like 1/10 of the work of the compilers of all of this, and then the work of someone to kind of digest all of that and present it in an intelligible fashion. So you can pray for me, please. Mostly, we're not going to have nice images like this because mostly we're not going to be in a place that has, projection screen and computer and indoor facility. It's going to be outdoors and it's going to rest on my shoulders. So I'm again, you please pray for me. It's not going to be easy. It's okay. It's nice to have challenges. You younger generation people, you get it in school. And I'm getting it in, a different stage of life to present something in an intelligible and meaningful manner. It's daunting. I'm sharing. Yes. Are you from that part of India, by the way? Kerala? Karnataka.
In Madhva Sampradaya and Sri Sampradaya, this Upanayana is there for, that's a kind of a must for most of the.
Oh, yeah.
But ISKCON did not have that kind of Upanayana for the children. So I was just wondering, maybe Prabhupada did not introduce this.
I don't know what Prabhupada's intention was. Likely his intention followed that of Bhaktisiddhanta. And certainly both Prabhupada and certainly Bhaktisiddhanta knew about Upanayana. But the emphasis was different. Like, from Bhagavatam, Canto 2, there's a whole section, Chapter 2, Canto 2, Chapter 3, Canto 2, where Prabhupada writes about deity worship. And then there's a celebrated purport where he says, every child by the age of 12 should be initiated. Every child by the age of 12 should be initiated. No, that was the emphasis. It was Harinam Diksha, not Upanayana. And part of the reason, my understanding, I didn't hear an explanation, just my understanding is that receiving mantras, Gayatri mantra, is for persons who are qualified. And the first business is to help people become qualified. And who's qualified in this age? People are unqualified. So the first business is to help people become qualified before they get Gayatri mantra, is to become qualified. Now, I don't know what happened. I don't know what was the practice during the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. But from the time of Bhaktisiddhanta, it was these two initiations, Harinam initiation, where a vow was taken before the fire and before the deity and before the spiritual master and the Vaishnavas, a vow to chant a certain number of rounds. And that's the Panchatrika system, because this other is the Vaidika system. The Vaidika system is the Upanayana system. So Bhaktisiddhanta blended the two, and Prabhupada followed Bhaktisiddhanta. I mean, here's a detail. I don't know if Prabhupada, when he was a young boy, received, Upanayana. I don't know. Chances are his father was a Vaishnava, so likely some ritual was done for Prabhupada as a small boy. I've got too many things to research, so I can't volunteer to research it. You can research it if he received it. But when he met Bhaktisiddhanta and eventually became formally initiated, Bhaktisiddhanta had the practice, as was Prabhupada's practice, that the first initiation and then later second initiation. In Prabhupada's case, he received both at the same time, which was unique, because Bhaktisiddhanta recognized his qualification. But your question specifically is this Upanayana, and why is it not there within ISKCON? I'm just responding what my understanding is, without reading anything that Prabhupada said about Upanayana, should we or shouldn't we. It's the principle of a thread, a 2-paisa thread, is meaningless without the real qualification. So one gets, then one should perform the activities of. Now, in this case, immediately the qualification was being displayed. Even it was a little earlier. It wasn't premature, it was just a little earlier, 5 instead of 8. But that's not there for us. No, he didn't have first and second initiation.
But this
It was
Upanayana,
Upanayana.
normally it will be given by his father.
Yes.
Father, actually.
Yes. That's what
Just-
happened here.
Yeah, but if I was thinking, the whole in our parampara from Madhvacarya all the way to Jayatirtha, just before Madhavendra Puri, Ishwarapuri. If the whole line of disciplic succession, they were all in Karnataka, all from Karnataka. So, but they were all practiced the whole, I was just wondering about
Yeah. Well, there is a, we've been through this several times. I don't mind doing it again. Shaka Beta. You've heard the term. Shaka means branch. Beta means a distinction. Beta and Abeta. So Beta, Shaka, this is a Shaka Beda of the Madhva line. That is Brahma, Madhva, Gaudiya. So the Gaudiya practices are Shaka Beda. And the teachings are Shaka Beda. Both the rituals, the tantras, and the mantras are similar, but not identical. Anyway, so there's some distinctions. And it's classic that the root is the same, but the branch does manifest some flowers and fruits and things that the trunk doesn't manifest. And it's quite okay. It's Vedic. It's not a broken sampradaya. It's the same sampradaya. But as you pointed out, up to there's the trunk, and then the branch. Yes. Oh, you want to say something? Yes.
Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj. It's really good. I went to Udupi, I went to the Bhajaka Kshetra, but I went all alone with kids and they were running around and we saw a group of kids they're doing Gurukul. So they showed all these stones. I was there when you were showing all these pictures, the stones and everything, and my little one, how can he started lifting? But I can't lift it. It's so heavy. They could not even do. It's so heavy. It's like a stone. I could remember all those things. Thank you, Maharaj. And I have a question. What about the two stands for Madhvacharya? Every time in the picture, I see like this.
I explained.
Yeah.
Dvaitavad.
Dvaitavad. Okay.
And Pancha Veda. Were you here for that explanation?
That session I missed it.
5 distinctions. Pancha Veda, 5 categories of distinction. Veda means distinction.
I think
This is different than that. So a fundamental, like over and over and over and over and over, 5 in his writings. This emphasis on this Dvaitavad, but there are 5 categories. So here we go. The living entity and God, that's 1. Living entity and material nature. God and material nature, that's 3. One living entity and another living entity, that's 4. And then aspects of material nature and another aspect of material nature, that's 5. The modernists, this is victory. But Madhva, it's Dvaitavad. Dvaitavad. You have something? Okay. Here you go.
Guru Maharaj, does Madhvacharya also regard the chanting of the holy name as the most effective means of spiritualization?
I don't know if that emphasis was part of his emphasis. I probably should find out. It's not in the same prominence, obviously, but the absolute nature of the Supreme, so the deity form, the scripture form, why not the name form? But I don't know the answer, with any authority behind it. Likely, but I don't know. Not the same kind of emphasis. As we know, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to inaugurate the Yuga Dharma. It's not that before he had established the Yuga Dharma, the people were not chanting the holy name. Mm-hmm. People were chanting the holy name, either knowingly or unknowingly, etc., purposefully or otherwise chanting the holy name. But so the degree of emphasis was distinctly not the same, but was there some emphasis? Now, traditionally, looking at paintings of traditional features of yogis and munis and rishis, they're all holding beads. Not all. But anyway, they're holding beads. So there was some kind of mantra meditation, but mantra with emphasis on the name of Hari, I don't know the answer. I should find the answer before I get to Udupi. Yes.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. I have a question on their conception of liberation.
It's conception of liberation?
Liberation. Their highest level of liberation is Vaikuntha Loka. Yesterday also you mentioned before the class. I was wondering why Madhvacarya is, he didn't talk about Goloka.
Well,
beyond...
not only he doesn't speak about Goloka, listen carefully. He speaks of Vaikuntha, not as you have an idea from being an ISKCON follower.
Yeah, there is only one Vaikuntha.
And it's within the universe. It's the Svetadvip, the abode of Vishnu. That's Vaikuntha. Liberation means to go there. There's lots of room. It's not overpopulation. Sorry, the door's closed. You have to find another Vaikuntha. That's the abode of liberation. There's more details and more details. If you want it, so why didn't he speak about Goloka? Because he didn't even speak about the Brahmajyoti and the Vaikuntha realms within the Brahmajyoti, and then amongst the spiritual planets is Goloka. None of that. It's absent. So then why? Why is it absent?
Yeah.
There are scripture because he made a different emphasis. What he wrote certainly is with scriptural foundation. He didn't do something whimsical. He had a different emphasis. That's the Brahma Vadva Sampradaya. And then Lord Chaitanya, as Shakabhed, made a different emphasis. And he described things the way that he described things. And it makes its way into particularly Chaitanya Charitamrita, which are the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, the life and the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. It's there in Lord Chaitanya's teachings, but it's not there in Madhva's teachings. Why not? Because he had a different emphasis. You're asking a similar question, different but similar question to Sri Radhika's question, way back the first day. How are we to regard these differences? Your question is not, how do we regard it? Why is it not there? He had a different emphasis. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu expanded what he received from Madhva and from his spiritual master Ishwar Puri in the way that he expanded it to accommodate a particular kind of gift of the love of Krishna in Vrindavan. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to not just give moksha or entrance into the spiritual realm, Svetadvip within this universe. He came to give Krishna Prema or Braja Prema. And there's teachings that accommodate or a complement with authority of scripture behind it. That's the Shakabhed of Mahaprabhu.
Thank you, Maharaj. Another question is, it's just curiosity question. In Sri Sampradaya, According to Ramanujacharya, what is the highest level of liberation?
What is
for
the
them?
what?
What is the highest level of liberation for them? Even they have only till Vaikuntha or
When you say only Vaikuntha, let's not belittle.
I mean, they don't go beyond.
It's another way of saying belittling. There isn't a conception, to my knowledge, which is limited, it's not a conception of Goloka as the topmost spiritual planet. It's not. That's a Gaudiya understanding, not a Sri Sampradaya understanding. So there's Vaikuntha and the Vaikuntha realm. And there are relationships in the Vaikuntha realm with Narayana. And the mood in Vaikuntha is Aishwarya. And that's the mood. Sri Sampradaya.
Thank you very much.
Behind you.
Guru Maharaj, this may be just asking.
We lost the young people. They got want to go play. Go ahead.
My question may be a different form or language similar to the other questions about the differences. I've been contemplating on this, the next generation. I mean, particularly as we can see, they're more connected to the kirtan, and I could really see that absorption. I mean, they may have mixed motivations, but definitely that connection is there, which is very wonderful and giving so much hope. On the other side, I can just take examples like onion, garlic, or following the Ekadashi. That's not so much emphasis.
Amongst the younger generation?
Yeah.
Well, it has everything to do with parenting and modeling as a parent.
Having a challenge.
Yeah, they're making decisions, and they have their friends that are going whatever direction their friends are going, and they want to go the direction of friends. That's the challenge of passing things on from one generation to the next generation.
Yeah, the reason I've been thinking, Guru Maharaj, even though the parents, unless all the parents are at
No, you
the
can't
same-
get all the parents.
Yeah. It's really
There's
becoming...
going to be variety amongst parents. You can't get all the variety, all parents on one channel.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
That's not a realistic expectation.
So considering that, as we are seeing this from Madhvacarya to our Sampradaya versus Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, there could be differences in the details, but the principles have to stay very core and strong. In the similar way, in the future generations of ISKCON,
Principles don't change. And then, it's going to become what it's going to become, and it depends upon qualified teachers to have qualified students and to train the qualified students by qualified teachers and have a generation that at least are representing the real thing. And then there's going to be, all kinds of other things going on in addition to the real thing. In some people, in some people, in some people. I mean, it's easy to get into a social commentary about the topic you're bringing up, and I'm restraining myself from doing that. Thoughtful people are not just thinking about me and my kids. They're thinking about what's the future going to look like? What can I do to help the future be what it could be, should be? That's the kind of thoughtfulness that you're presenting. And diversification is already there, and it's going to continue to be there. Therefore, parenting is a big deal. And preaching is also a big deal. Because there may very well be persons, I don't know if you noticed it, I noticed it last night, there were two non-Indian people in the audience. I was sent a picture of the Chicago temple. I didn't see, there must have been some, but I didn't see any. The demographics have completely changed. completely changed. Anyway, that's a whole topic also. But, the potential of receptacles to receive bhakti message are many, many, many. They're not just the kids of our, the current parents, and they get married and they have kids. And then the kids go in the direction the kids go. If you're going to step back, you have to look at the bigger picture altogether, not just including parenting, but not just parenting, and the next generation of our devotee children, and how to get, the best result. There are fantastic results. Without naming names, there are fantastic results. And there's some, and then there's the whole spectrum of other than fantastic results. But that's not the whole spectrum of the Hare Krishna movement going into the future, as far as I can see. Because what Prabhupada accomplished was not based upon the children of our non-resident Indian families that have nice education, nice jobs, nice homes, nice technology, and, kids that are going to like kirtan and not like Ekadasis, or whatever it is they don't like. You can't twist their arm. Anyway, it's an important topic, but it's the whole social consideration going into the future. And we're on Madhvacarya. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.